Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today is November 1st, 2022, and the time is 1:01 p.m. We're gathered today for our briefing meeting, and our briefing items include construction change order report, emergency food purchases, job descriptions, and public comment, along with board members' comments and reports. At this time, Superintendent Bernier, if he has any comments.
Madam Chair, at this point, I do not.
Okay, thank you. Then I'll turn it over to Scott Rickenbacker, Director of Facility Development and Programming, to give us the construction change order report. Welcome.
Good afternoon, board members. Dr. Bernier, Esquire Clay Bruno. This is your September 2022 change order report. As you can see on the cover page, we have 0 direct material purchases for the reporting month. We have $400,513.56 in non-material direct purchase change orders, an amount returned of $400,513.56 credited back into the district coffers. Contingency adjustments, change orders were $13,729.84. The corresponding backup sheet, breakdown sheet, will provide you with all of the reasons for those change orders. Are there any questions?
Board members, any questions regarding the change order report? Okay, I guess we don't have any questions, as usual.
I would like to highlight just one item. You'll see for Gateway High School, through our final auditing, we found $258,000 in return fees to the district coffers.
Wow.
So that combined with, we had a credit change order of just over $2 million plus this. So we're at over $2 million returned back to the district.
That's wonderful news. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms.
Have a good
Vaughn
day.
says yes.
Money back?
Yes. Thank you. Any further information for us today? Thank you. I'd like to take this opportunity to say that Ms. Morgan will not be with us this evening. She's not feeling well, and we are waiting for Ms. Gittens, I believe. Thank you.
Miss Morgan should be on the phone. I think she was calling in.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if she is on the phone though.
She is going to be calling in, but I don't know if she had an opportunity to do that as yet, because she just actually left.
Yeah. Mrs. Morgan, are you on the phone? I don't think she's with us yet. Okay. So next on the agenda is a report on emergency food purchases, and it's an update. And I will welcome Candy Messenger and Susan Millay. I think that's who's over there. Welcome this afternoon.
Sorry, working on technology over here. Good afternoon, board members. Attorney Deeper Bruno, I say your name wrong all the time, I'm sorry, and Dr. Bernier. Today, we are going to discuss the emergency food purchases from what happened in the past, present, and future, as far as where we are with the emergency food supply waivers that were put in place last year. So the agenda is to report the outcomes of the emergency food purchases, review the impact on student meals and costs, provide current year status, and review the forecast for the school year. So the background of the emergency food purchases started in October of 2021 with the supply chain issues that were a result of the COVID pandemic, where manufacturers no longer had raw materials to meet the demand both in private and public industries. This was also compounded with our prior main grocer vendor discontinuing servicing to the K-12 business, which changed our business model to get groceries into the schools. In October of 2021, Food and Nutrition Services asked for an increase of $9 million to cover the anticipated cost of the storage and transportation of groceries into the schools to feed our students. In December of 2021, with the help of the procurement services, we were able to get contracts with 2 vendors, Florida Freezer, who would be able to store the amount of food needed, and OC Trucking, who delivered the groceries to the kitchen so we could feed our students. January through July of 2022, Food and Nutrition Services worked closely with the vendors to put into place a working plan that has allowed us to feed 7.8 million meals in the second semester and over 200,000 meals this past summer.
Thank you.
With the unknowns that we had to work with, from short food supplies by the main grocer supplier, the food and nutrition team was able to ensure that students received a complete and healthy meal every day. Food and Nutrition Services spent $4.3 million, which is less than the $9 million in which we had originally estimated. This is broken down by $2.8 million increase of cost of food and $1.5 million to the cost of storage and distribution. The food supply continues to be a challenge. Food and Nutrition Services has had to get direct shipments from manufacturers to ensure we have the food. The partnership with the storage and distribution companies have been effective and efficient with the cost less than estimated. Here's a graph of the food expenditures for January through June of 2022. As you see, we spent less at Cisco. This was due to the supply chain issues. This is where the direct deliveries from manufacturers who deliver directly to Florida Freezer or to the district warehouse to help fill the gap. Items that we have brought in through direct delivery are crackers, cereals, and breakfast items, which are mostly the grain component that is needed to make a student meal. In the 6-month comparison, the cost of food continues to rise. This is evident when you go into a grocery store, and most of the food costs are higher. This is no different for us trying to feed our students. We are expecting small increases from Florida Freezer and OC Trucking. Direct deliveries are continuing to happen where we are notified that our main grocer is not able to get items for us, which forces us to reach out to manufacturers to see what they have. Most time, the deliveries from manufacturers can happen within a couple of weeks. The main grocer needs 60 days to get the product into their facility, and then it's another 2 weeks before the item is in the schools for our students. We received an extension for the emergency purchasing waiver to July of 23. This will allow us to continue with the current business model that we are working with. At this time, Cisco has not given us a timeline for Cisco to start school-to-school delivery model back, and that we have had it with our previous grocer vendor. Manufacturers have streamlined their product lines, offering less choices while food costs continue to rise. To supplement the food costs, Food and Nutrition Services utilize the Department of Defense produce and take advantage of USDA commodity processing and some brown box items. The total USDA entitlement dollars that we have been allocated for this year is just over $4.1 million. There are over 700 employees who are committed to serving our students. The creativity that this workforce has shown with the food supply is awesome. The awareness of the additional cost with food, storage, and delivery helped the staff when planning for the students. The flexibility when we have had to change up things is amazing. This staff are superheroes for the last 3 years with COVID feeding, food supply challenges, and now with the challenge of Hurricane Ian. They have shown up, and continue to feed our students in some pretty challenging times. I give them the credit where food and nutrition services is today. Without each of these men and women on our food service team, I cannot do the job that I do. I am blessed to be part of this team. Questions?
Thank you.
Superintendent?
Dr. Bernier?
Just a few comments to begin with. First of all, I echo Ms. Messenger's statements related to the wonderful people that man our kitchens. It's a site visit stop for me every time I go into a school building to make sure it's time to go back behind the wall, especially if food service is not going on with children. I usually just stand in the line and wave, but if I have the opportunity, like I did this morning at Lexington, to get behind the scenes, talk to them, they are truly committed. They understand the importance of their return in this process because they know they're vital in serving our children the meals that they may not be getting at home in other places. So I do really appreciate the effort that went into this presentation. Some of this information dated my becoming the superintendent, and we will get you additional updates. Well, certainly there's more information to follow regarding Hurricane Ian, the cost of our shelter costs and the cost of the food that we had to procure in order to have those places ready when the county called upon us. So I just wanted to make sure that number one, it feels like we ought to be recognizing all the food service workers in some way, somehow, as well as the many other support professionals we have, that without our jobs as educators and principals and school leaders and district leaders would be much more difficult. So thank you for the presentation, Candace, and appreciate your kind words to the people that I know you feel honored to serve.
Thank you, Dr. Bernier. Board members, any questions or comments for Ms. Messenger? Ms. Patrica?
Thank you for the presentation and for your work. As I was watching or consuming the presentation, I get the sense that this was like a puzzle that you had to put together in order to be able to provide food to our kids. And we have to be aware that sometimes the only food that kids eat is when they're in our buildings. I want to commend you. You commended your team. It's my understanding that without you, we wouldn't have fed anybody in those shelters because you did an incredible job of logistics, managing the logistics of making sure that all of those buildings had food. So thank you for that. And as a sort of a segue into my comments this evening regarding an elected versus appointed superintendent, it's my understanding that that you are in charge of the largest food service organization in all of Lee County. Is that true?
Yes.
And you report to an appointed superintendent, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. I promise I will dovetail that into my comments tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Patrica. Any other comments? Ms. Jordan?
I have to agree with both of them. I was lucky enough to, or unlucky enough to, be at the kitchens during the shelter time, and just watching everybody in action and the dedication that they had was amazing. And coming from this background, I understand what you all go through, so I really, truly appreciate what you all do and how you put everything together to make sure that our children do eat. And those who do not have the meals in the evening also have food to take home to eat. Because as mentioned, this is sometimes the only food that they have. Mm-hmm. So continuing through the summer and everything else that we have done, I think that has been amazing. I don't know, when I see about Cisco though, how do we, how are we working on that, move a little quicker? Because I know there's other entities out there, Cheney and other providers. Do we have any knowledge of what their issue is?
Yes, Jim, please.
Sorry. Did you understand my question?
Yes, so
Okay.
if I can paraphrase, the question is there anything we can do to help Cisco along in moving faster? And are we in good position if they're not able to meet our needs? Is that
Correct.
So we're working very closely with Cisco through the Power Buying Group Consortium. So there are, close to 30 school districts on the same contract with Cisco for these services, and they are having the same struggles as we see everywhere: the pricing of food, the driver shortages, et cetera. based on the volume of our school district, as large as we are, they are just not able to satisfy the ability to deliver to every one of our schools, which is what we had in the past. And so we are posturing to be able to provide the services that we need from the direct deliveries, and we continue to explore other avenues for how we can continue to augment or improve upon the contractual services that we have.
Thank you. And I think it's really, too, important that people understand how it all really works, and you have the inventory, like central inventory processing, and then from the schools, it comes to that location, and then the food is disseminated. Because I know sometimes it's like mind-boggling. It's like, how do you get all that food to everywhere? But you do have those systems in place to ensure, and then as you stated, there's other means of food coming in directly where the rooms are piled with food that you supplement to take to the location so that the kids can eat.
Yes.
So I thank you for that, because that in itself is a huge undertaking, and you all make it happen. So thank you for that.
Candy and her logistics and scheduling team and all of her staff have really done an amazing job of creatively thinking of new ways to provide healthy meals to our students, and every week it's something different. And as to the planning aspect, they are planning up to 8 weeks out what the menus are, and so that means the food has to be en route or in the warehouse and targeted for delivery to schools well in advance. So the execution of the logistics and planning is phenomenal in the Food and Nutrition Services Department.
Ms. Giovanelli?
Thank you for bringing up that was something I was going to bring up, was how many other schools or districts are having the same issue, and because we're not the only one, and obviously we see that gas is not going down, as well as our grocery bill is increased. So we understand, I mean, personally, I think we're seeing it, so how would we not feel it at a higher level and more need, right? And I think it out of the box, and I just want to thank you for all the hard work, because there has to be a lot of thought process and putting in the logistics into place, and then working. I mean, it's all great to tell it, but I mean, for it to actually work out and play out the way you need it to, the end result is what's fantastic, and somebody's doing something right. Thank you for that. So my question really is, how many other districts have thought out of the box? And because a year ago, when I called it, we became a grocery store, our own grocery store. You know, we had to think of ways to store the food, and that was amazing. But I'll be honest, I was reluctant. But I mean, honestly, the need was not only then, but now it's even greater, I think. And so I'm just curious if anybody else, other districts, did the same thing you did. Yes. You know?
There are 3 counties that have to have the one delivery location, and we have all handled it differently. And so what's working for us is it's working. So I can't speak to what they're doing. It's working for them, whatever I know one county took over a warehouse and they're manning it themselves. And I'm not sure what the other county, I think they're dropping it in large schools, and their staff is dispersing out to the schools.
Okay, so thank you for that. So can you explain our process so others can be reminded of that? Because now I need it, actually. Thank you.
So we place a large grocery order with Sysco to be delivered. And these groceries are, right now, we are looking at the first week of December for those groceries to be in our schools. So that's what we're currently ordering in. And then it comes into Florida Freezer. They store it for us, and then they turn around and we issue them individual orders. So they do what is called a pick. We send them a pick ticket, which is our order. They pick it and get it ready for OC Trucking. labeled with each school. OC Trucking sets up routes that we have approved, and they pick it up early in the morning, and they start delivering to our schools. So when Susan says it's an 8-week process, from planning the menu to the food getting on the plates of our students, it truly is a 2-month window. So, and if we need anything new on our menu, it's a 60-day, we have to put a forecast in, and then it's 60 days for it to come in. So that's why some repetitive is happening on our menus. And we are restricted again from our manufacturers who have brought their product lines down from what it used to be.
Thank you so much. And today's Taco Tuesday, and my granddaughter is very happy, so I just want to say that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I have a question. So can you talk a little bit about the supply chain? And I know it's been even further impacted by Hurricane Ian, but what is it, can you expand a little bit on using the Department of Defense produce and the USDA commodity products?
Yes, so we receive an entitlement for participation from the previous year. There's a big formula that they use. We have been granted the over $4.1 million. So we, as a department, make the determination on how we want to spend these dollars. So the Department of Defense produce, we have selected to put $2 million over there, and we receive fresh produce into our schools. In a sense, it's not a charge to us, but it's part of our entitlement. So there's not an invoice that we pay. The Department of Defense pays it through our entitlement. And then the commodity processing and USDA, what we call brown box. The commodity processing is when we take and ship, we don't ship it, but we ask for raw product to go to, I want to make sure, I'll use Big Daddy's since it was a hot topic. So we ship cheese to Big Daddy's, which is a Swan's company, to make our pizza. So part of that is, it's called commodity processing. So they send the raw product to the manufacturer, produce the products for us at a lesser price.
Okay.
And then we receive it in and serve it to our students. And then brown box, it's a whole nother item, is when it comes directly from USDA. In this case, our turkeys for Thanksgiving, we were able to get all of those through what is called brown box. So that was, I know for Thanksgiving, our students will have turkey.
That's wonderful news. And I know that we recently received a relatively small grant for school gardens, and I know that we're expanding in the use of school gardens across the district. How are you utilizing that, and how is that when it comes to the government controls? I mean, how does that help us to be able to serve fresh produce to our students?
The grant it helps sustain that program. Using the lettuce is what we've been using into our schools. That means we're ordering less lettuce from our vendor that we would have to pay for, that we're growing in our schools and being able to support the schools around it once we get it rebuilt from Ian's destruction.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much. Ms. Jordan?
I just wanted to comment because it sounded as if we're not feeding them fresh produce without this. We absolutely
Yes.
are feeding fresh produce and vegetables to our kids. Okay, I just want to make sure that.
I have a vendor that is also handles our fresh produce, and we also use the DOD. So they work in tandem.
Correct. And then with the added that the
Correct.
kids, our students are doing, which is fabulous, then that's just an added bonus for us.
Yes,
Okay.
that is correct.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And I want to thank you and all of your team for feeding our kids, because as it has been mentioned before, and I just was talking to some people in the community about the fact that a lot of times when kids aren't in school, they're not eating. And so we really appreciate all of your efforts, and the cafeteria workers are awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Gittens?
Thank you. Sorry I was late. I was listening, though, as to what was going on. And I just want to say as well, thank you during the hurricane and providing all of the food and everything that we needed. That was a monumental task as well. So I just wanted to make sure, if that hasn't been said, that it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, thank you very much for this presentation. And next on the agenda, we have job descriptions, and our presenter today is Robert Dodig, Executive Director for Human Resources. And we have revisions on Coordinator for HR, Coordinator for Projects, Coordinator for Threat Assessment, and Executive Director, Leadership and Professional Development Department. Welcome, Mr. Dodig.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. Good afternoon, board members, Attorney DePuy-Bruno, Dr. Bernier. I am here with 4 job descriptions that are current job descriptions but are being amended, so there's no new job descriptions. The first is a coordinator in human resources for information services. That is the job that deals with PeopleSoft and Laserfish in HR. We have, and I know Ms. Gittens, I'm glad you came today, because we've split up the minimum qualifications and preferred qualifications in the job description, which we'll be doing going forth. The key change here is the minimum qualification of a bachelor's degree. In the current market, where there is almost 100% employment, we were missing a whole segment of possible applicants in the pool. So we have changed the minimum qualification to bachelor's. The preferred is still a master's. We've also, in all of these job descriptions, amended the KSAs, the knowledge, skills, and abilities, to reflect better reflect what we do in the district. And we have standardized a lot of those KSAs moving forward. So when we bring job descriptions to you in the future, these will all look alike and have similar language. The project coordinator, similar change in HR. Once again, the bachelor's degree is the minimum, the master's is the preferred, and we have removed some requirements there that were very stringent, requiring a Lean Six Sigma green belt or black belt, which the former occupier of this job had, but could be very difficult to find on the open market. The third job description is the coordinator of threat assessment. That is in safety and security, Chief Newland's department. There is a change there to the minimum qualifications and the preferred in safety and security. There was a question about the funding for this position. This is a grant-funded position, and the grant is known as the STOP grant from United States Department of Justice, and that expires September 30th of 23. This is the former position that Rick Parfit occupied and is currently vacant. And then finally, the Executive Director of Leadership and Professional Development. What has been removed from that job description is the references to recruitment. Recruitment is in human resources. The Executive Director of PD and Leadership is now in academic services. So that position no longer has recruitment under it. So that's why the change was made to that job description. With that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Bernier and the board.
Thank you.
I don't have any comments at this time, other than to say that all organizational, I know this will come up, so I wanted to just All organizational charts are currently being worked on. We had that board request. All organizational charts for every member of this organization have been redeveloped. They're in the hands of our chief of staff at the moment. He is now working with individuals who can format them identically. We don't want one set of colors and one set of type. We want to have an organizational chart that reflects all of our positions from the school board at the very top all the way through to the individuals who serve this district very well in the positions that they're in. But we want that to be consistent and identical across departments. So Michael Ramirez has been working on that. I just wanted to make sure you didn't think that had left the to-do list.
Thank you. Ms. Vaughn and then Ms. Gittens.
Yeah, on the chart, under Executive Director of Leadership and Professional Development, we have the title that always bothers me, the vague title, Principal on Assignment. What exactly is the rationale for having that there? Is it just in case we need an extra person, or is there an ongoing specific job function for that particular principal on assignment?
Ms. Vaughn, I'm certainly able to handle that question. As you recall, in the midst of trying to bring a principal to Trafalgar Middle prior to my stead as superintendent, we opted to bring a principal on assignment into our leadership program within professional development to help build, from a leadership practitioner's point of view, our leadership pipeline. So that individual was moved from Trafalgar Middle to that position. It represents a particular person hired for a specific purpose that we went over with the board, and that freed up the room to move the other individual into the principalship.
Okay, but does that, if I may, is that a job that one particular person has for how many years, or is it a revolving position so that it's been my experience that, and I don't know if it's something about this building, but that once people are removed from school settings, there seems to be an amnesia that sets in about life in the schools. And some people are more immune to that amnesia than others, but sometimes it strikes very quickly. So that's why I'm asking that particular question, how that person, and I don't know the person, so it's no comment on the particular person, but how that person stays current with the very, very rapid changes in our schools.
This particular person was hired specifically around the preparation work for individuals seeking the administrative pool, additionally for those people in the pool seeking the principalship in order to help to lend that expertise of having been a building level principal. I've seen school districts approach these positions two ways. One is where it is a period of time for a principal on assignment to be part of that project, and then at some point they rotate off when we have built what we were intending to build. In other cases, I've seen them stay on with a district but change the title. In my mind, a principal on an assignment title is not a permanent title. That's mine. I don't know that that conversation has been as fully vetted with this individual. If they're listening, I'm not trying to panic them. This project plan was just getting underway this fall for the leadership pipeline. We have several years worth of work to accomplish what we'd like to do to make sure that we're building our own leaders and a diverse pool of leaders moving forward from which to choose from to lead our school buildings.
Okay, and if I may, just to finish out what I'm curious about, principal on assignment has always been one, Rob's smiling, that has bothered me, because to me it is not a permanent thing. And so I always wonder, and this is for the sake of anybody looking at this organizational chart, to me, when I see principal on assignment, now you've explained it very well, but when somebody else looking at principal on assignment, it's like, what does that mean? And that's my problem with that title. And if it's going to be something that needs to be there permanently in that particular role that you described, I think it would be better, for the sake of clear information, to give it a title other than principal on assignment. So that's just my feeling about that title. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Gittens?
Okay, thank you. I tend to agree with Ms. Vaughn on this one. I would honestly like to know, and I'm not asking you to tell me now, historically what has happened with principals on assignment. Have they proceeded to stay downtown, quote unquote, or have they gone back into the education realm? Where did they go? Because the reason that's important is because people will see that and assume this is my stepping stone to do this, as opposed to I'm in this job to do this. So I agree with her on, the kind of nebulousness of principal on assignment is kind of out there. And how are people going to see it? How are the staff going to see it? And especially say this one thing, especially now in this time of difficulty getting staff, is it something that we should have on hiatus while we wrestle through staffing and the issues that we have with staffing? So that's just a thought, and I have one more.
As for the history, I can't provide the history of this district yet. Mr. Dodig and I will go to work on that regarding these positions. But I think you're all raising very important points. In the places where I have personally utilized principals on assignment in the past, they were a 2 to 3 year period of time in order to get particular projects off the ground, like a leadership pipeline. I also use them in a former organization in the Preparing New Principals program, where that viewpoint of a principal helping an assistant principal develop their academic and other intervention plans for their school building to demonstrate their competencies was critically important, to have somebody who was a current practitioner. When the people took those particular positions, they were aware it was a 3 year rotation. It was a chance to continue to bring somebody out of the principalship, help them develop new ones, but then they chose positions either to go back to become a principal again, or they found a position within the district they felt best suited their needs and their career path.
Well, thank you, just a thought. The other thing is, as you're looking at the org chart, and the positions you presented today are not filled or anything at this point, they're just, you're just presenting them. So it may be a good thing in future that on the org chart to have them a different color or a different label, to say to someone who hasn't looked at this before and thinking that these are positions that we have that are filled and open it, at this time.
Yeah, I just want to, just so you have clarity, 2 of these positions are filled, HRIS and the Executive Director of Professional Development and Leadership. Those positions have people in them.
Okay,
Yeah.
Well, just
I understand what you're saying, though. It makes sense.
just to look at it and say, well, this is not filled at this point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gittens. Mrs. Giovanelli?
I just wanted to piggyback off of what Ms. Vaughn and Ms. Gittens were saying. My recollection of the principal on assignment when that change happened over the summer was that principal was going to mentor other principals and some of the things that you just mentioned, Dr. Bernier. Which leads me to asking, I know there was 3 schools that had a slip in some of their grades, and is that the principal on assignment, are they going to aid or assist, or or are they working together with them for their plan, the state's requirements? I mean, that's where I would think that's where they would be needed. So I'm just curious.
turning around a school building who's dropped in academic performance is a very different skill set than building future leaders. There are very specific skill sets for turnaround principals, for principals who work in low SES or social economic status environments, more diverse environments, as well as who work at the very upper end of what our community has to offer in terms of parents and students as well. What you look for is an opportunity to train people as best you can and professionally develop them to be good in all of those environments, but clearly their experience lends itself to particular environments. As far as I know, this individual is not currently working with our turnaround schools or those D schools because that is not necessarily that individual's particular skill set. That means he has great abilities, and I appreciate him getting a little bit of an assessment from the dais from the superintendent. He has great abilities, but his work is in the leadership development piece, working to help identify leaders, bring them through to the deanship, then the assistant principalship, and build us a process to build a pipeline. He's not necessarily going to be the individual overseeing the pipeline long term, but his skill and expertise of how to bring someone, recognize talent, and then bring them and prepare them for the principalship is why he was selected. So in short, he's not working with the schools, in those particular schools.
My apology, because I think I'm getting that confused with another title. Do you?
Principal coach, potentially.
Thank you, that's it. Thank you, I am getting it. But that was all around the same time, so.
It is. As far as, we do have principal coaches. I have weighed in with all of you privately how I feel about principal coaches, because I believe we have executive directors, a chief academic officer, and a deputy superintendent that should be wearing that coaching hat with our principals. Now, if there was outside coaching that needed to occur related to an executive director's direction or the deputy superintendent's direction, then that individual could be utilized that way. But I find, this may sound odd, but I find it to serve too many bosses. Superintendency with 7 wonderful people seated at this board table is an example of you know, I've shared it before. It's having 7 different partners and figuring out a way forward. I think for our principals, especially if they're struggling, it's important that there's consistent messaging through their direct supervisor, and that coach only be utilized specifically for particular areas in which that coach is best prepared for.
Thank you, because that helps a lot. And I like to cha-cha. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Ms. Jordan, then Ms. Gittens.
Thank you. And if I may, I think that what Ms. Giovanelli was speaking about, we had the 3 that were in the schools, which I believe were called the principal on assignments, who were going to take over the schools when the other people had retired. This predates Dr. Bernier, for sure. And then those 3, then it kind of like dissipated, went away. So it's no longer here.
I will refer to Mr. Dodig. There's another specific title for that position.
Associate principal.
Okay, I apologize. Associate principal. But I know there was the 3, so when she said 3, that's what came to my mind. But, so we tried that one, and then that one did not work. But, and I'm glad we're having this conversation, because a lot of times when you're out in the community, you hear people having conversation. Who are these principals on assignment? Were they people who did something and they were put in here to be a principal on assignment? And I actually heard that this past week. So I really appreciate this conversation, so that hopefully everybody is hearing the discussion and the clarification of what this actually means. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Ms. Jordan. Ms. Gittens.
Okay, so there were actually 3 things. There were the associate principals, and I believe there were only 2. And they were like learning so they could take over a school. The other thing, the coaches, was something that we never actually put into place. And it was a discussion about hiring 3 people that would work with principals in the district. And I don't believe we ever...
There's one principal coach, and that's the school.
Right, but I know we had talked one time about hiring 3 of them, and
yes,
there was a whole big discussion. And then there's a principal on assignment. So just making sure we know there's 3 things. My question is, since the concept of the principal on assignment is that they come in for 3 years to work on specific projects based on their skill set. Am I correct in saying that?
I would caution you on that language. I was using a previous example of where I used in professional development in a former district. That was the time frame I put on those positions. That is not what we're currently doing with our current principal on assignment within Lee County. As to the coaches, once you gave me the honor to serve, that was a conversation I had with our chief academic officer about one being enough until I could figure out how this was going to work and how that was going to work within the restructuring of academic services. So that's why they didn't expand to 3.
Well, my question, I guess suggestion is, if we have a principal on assignment for whatever length of time, that we state a specific amount of time, if it's 2 years or 3 years. And if it's for specific assignments, like it's to work with the leadership piece, then why couldn't it be something that the principals, based on their skill set, could apply for, or request for, to say, this is my skill set, and I would love to be the principal on assignment for the next 2-3 years to work on this. That way it's clearer to everybody, it's clear to them what they're there for. It's not, a stepping stone, I'm going to do this for 6 months and then I'm going to be here.
I agree with you, and I think that's something we have to look at long-term, but I go back to what some of you occasionally will say to me on the telephone: you need a little bit of a history lesson, Dr. B. We've forgotten how we got this particular coach, and that's not really on the agenda today. But remember, I was a consultant when specifically someone was supposed to fall into another position, and that had come several times. And I worked with then Superintendent Savage, the chief of staff at that point. We came up with a solution in order to be able to move the person into the principalship that we wanted, and gave all of us a solution related to what to do with the other individual who has shown great value in the professional development realm right now, and including up to he is working with our accreditation process on top of it. So not only has he taken on some of the leadership pipeline roles, but he's also working on the district-wide accreditation process, which will help principals walk through that myriad of requirements that they have to do in order to be accredited as a district, because they all have to submit their relative portfolios.
And my point in bringing it up is not for the past history or what we're doing right this moment, but in future to look at the possibility of structuring it a little bit different. So as Ms. Jordan said, people are wondering what this means, to make it clearer to everyone and to give people an opportunity. So that's my only comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Vaughn, and then I have a comment.
A couple things have come to mind listening to my colleagues' comments. First of all, it seems like several of us are really picking at that title, principal on assignment. And one thing that exact title is going to appear in other org charts, right?
I'd have to
From time
look.
to time.
I'd have to look, but I don't know if currently there is another
But
principal
it
on assignment.
might, it might.
Potentially, I suspect, yes.
And again, it's all about clarity to the public, or anybody looking at it, to a board member looking at it. And I just thought, here's a possibility there, keep it principal on assignment, because we may even have other principal on assignments elsewhere, but put colon, go back up in professional development or whatever we want, but colon, just to kind of make it obvious, because who said people comment about what did that principal do? Did the principal get, was that, somebody said that, yeah. And I've heard that too, like, oh, must have done something wrong or sending them, okay. The other thing, based on what Dr. Bernier said, that principal coach, I've never been in favor of that particular, we've added that fairly recently, I think within the past year, and I've never thought that it was something that was needed. And, you know, again, obviously, I'm not going to be here to discuss it, but I think that that might be, especially since the superintendent said what he did, something to look at again. And we do have the principal leads,
Executive directors. And there are principal leads,
the
yes.
principal leads that, I mean, we do have other areas, and as you said, how, you know, the principal coach may have a totally different idea of, you know, way of work and things that work, and the principal coach might be saying something to a principal that's struggling with a particular thing, and then the principal lead just might have a different way of looking at it. And I don't know if it really, how helpful it would be when you have 2 or 3 different people all telling you, well, this is how I'd do it, this is how I would do it, because there are going to be those differences. So I would say moving forward, that one particular position might be one that could be easily eliminated. And those are my comments.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? And I just want to say, I feel like the conversation today has clarified for us a little bit, and I appreciate that. Historically, I think the perception that led to the comments that you heard, Ms. Gittens, has been that, you know, either somebody messed up or they wanted to change, you know. And I think too many cooks spoil the broth, and I think our executive directors can do a very apt job in leading our principals, and everyone's different. You know, we have to have some room for flexibility. Different leadership styles render different results. So I appreciate the clarification, and I agree with Dr. Bernier about the principal coach. I really, yeah. So I thank you for this attention to the organizational chart, because it always brings out some very important facts. So thank you, and thank you for your presentation. Do you have anything else to add?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Thank you very much, Mr. Doty.
Welcome.
So next on the agenda is public comment, and Attorney Dupree Bruno, would you address the issue of public comment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, we do not have anyone who has signed up for public comment.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience who has not signed up for public comment but would like to make one? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on then for good of the order. And I've been advised that Mrs. Morgan is on the phone. Mrs. Morgan, do you hear us? Mrs.
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. Do you have any comments or questions?
I did not hear the conversation, so I may be asking a question that was asked and answered. But I was curious about eliminating Lean Six Sigma from all the job descriptions. It was my understanding that was a way of identifying a critical thinking path sort of expectation on the part of new hires, and so that was the only question I had about the job descriptions. Thank you.
Repeat your answer, because I think it was very good, regarding the Lean Six Sigma and the hiring pool. Thank you.
You're welcome. So the thinking there was that by requiring that, instead of making it preferred, which we could do, we are limiting our pool of applicants if they're required to have that before they actually take a position here. That was it.
Okay, Ms. Morgan, is that satisfactory, or do you need more?
No, that's fine, although I do think that perhaps in the future, we ought to think about something in the job descriptions that talks about critical thinking, decision paths, experience with processes, but that's for another day. Thank you very much, Mr. Dodick.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Yes, Ms. Gittens.
While he's still here, before he loses his chair.
You might as well make yourself comfortable, Mr. Doting.
On the Lean Six Sigma though, is it something that if someone is hired that they can do it through the district? Can they get that certification through the district? Because that creates a whole other issue. It's like
Correct.
teaching the bus drivers and giving them their licensure and then they can leave. Is this something that could possibly fall into that one?
It could if we wanted to do that, but currently, no. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else for good of the order? Okay. Next on the agenda is board member comments and reports. And Ms. Morgan, would we be able to start with you?
Hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so I want to say, first of all, congratulations to the 40 PBS, Florida PBS schools. That's a great number. And I just want to say I appreciate the schools making the effort to support those policies in their schools. I want to congratulate the 10 school administrators who were chosen for the state leadership program that's sponsored by the Florida Department of Education as a professional learning opportunity for school administrators. And shame on me, I meant to include the names, but I was very impressed by the list, and I'm sure that they will bring back to the county some great learning that takes place there. I want to congratulate Colonial Elementary on being one of 7 schools chosen by UCF Center for Community Schools to receive a community school grant. This is something else established by the Florida legislature. It requires the school district to work with nonprofit organization, healthcare providers, and a college or university. And I'm excited that we have that community school joining us, and I'm looking forward to maybe perhaps someday Bonita Elementary. I want to thank the staff for sharing the indoor air quality assessment link. I want to compliment Sophia Cabrera on her video about the students who stepped up to help locals repair and rebuild their home damages. I thought that was really well done and deserving of being played on a regular news broadcast. I want to thank staff for sharing the Media School Messenger outreach message because it clarified for me again what exactly the process is. I do not know what a BSI school is, and I don't know what a TPG teacher is. Those were acronyms used in some of the board member updates. I want to thank Accountability Assessment and Research for their update. I think it's really cool that you guys are actually looking at proposed theses and assessing whether the proposals will be not only ethical, legal, but would be actually a real contribution to the field. I like the growth tracker comment, and I have one question of them, and that's they mentioned developing a semester 2 plan for the National Development Program that will increase the scale to include students in grades 6, 10, and 11. I have no idea what that meant. I'm sure they can provide some information in the next update. So those are my comments. There's a lot going on, a lot of good stuff going on. And I know it takes time on the part of staff to provide these updates, but I find them very helpful in terms of learning what's going on in the district and reminding me of things that I had forgotten were taking place. So thank you very much. Those are my comments.
For starting us off with a positive note. Okay, Ms. Vaughn.
I don't have anything right now, but I just wanted to give everybody a heads up since there's 3 of us for whom it will be our last action meeting. And I know I do have comments that I'll be reading. So if all three of us do that, which I think would be a good thing, we'll have some interesting food for thought. So not at this time, but tonight, yes.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. Then we'll hear from you this evening. Thank you. Ms. Gittens?
Yes, I have comments for this evening, but you'll find it interesting that I had written them out and gone over them and had them on my computer, and this morning I got up to go over them, and they're not to be found anywhere on my computer. So I hear you, okay? I was not supposed to say what I had planned to say. So he gave me a very good message of that. But I do have something I will say this evening. And just continued kudos to everybody that is teaching our children in not always the perfect settings and situations and everything that they're used to having and doing. But we're making it work, and children are learning, and they're happy, and every time, I go into a classroom or anything, they're all just glad to be there and getting along and all of that. So just thank you to everyone that's helping our community get back to whatever our new normal will be. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gittens. Ms. Jordan?
Thank you. I have a few things that I will share, and thanks for the heads up, Ms. Vaughn. I want to make sure that we're celebrating. We have two of our schools, Mariner High School and Fort Myers High School and Mariner High School, both received the National Unified Champion Schools. This is with the Special Olympics. There are one of 16, so we're two of 16 schools in the state, and then 164th in the country. I think that's pretty amazing. I know that Dr. Bernier was at Fort Myers High School, and the excitement, and it just made you feel so great to be a part of the district and the kids and how they treat and respect one another. It was really, really beautiful to see all that. So I really want to give them a shout out for, doing this. The Special Olympics is a really good thing for us, and we want to make sure that all of our children feel that they are part of us, and these two schools made it known that they're going to make sure that all the kids are taken care of. Also, I wanted to, sorry, I can't see. And I think I gave the report on the backpacks, how the community had given 250. All those backpacks have been given out. There's another 2,000 backpacks that are coming. We have not received those as yet, but they will be filled, and they will go out to the schools that need them, whether it's the high school, middle schools, elementary schools. We will have those, and that is by community participation. Thank you, Ms. Morgan, for sharing that about Colonial Elementary, the Community Partnership School. That's our third one, and I think that those schools are amazing, and what they give back to the staff, the community, families. It's just, I wish we could have those in, that's my dream and my goal is to have those in every school. It's just much needed. And then I also want to thank Challenger Middle School. I don't know if everyone had the opportunity yet, but there's cards in the kitchen where the students actually wrote to us as board members and thanked us for getting them back in school and what that really meant to them. So if you get an opportunity, please make sure that you go in there and read those. They were pretty amazing. And that's all that I have to say for right now, and I thank you, Ms. Fisher.
Thank you. And now, Ms. Patrica.
I have to give my elected versus appointed tonight, which I will do. But did we fix the audio in this room? It is so good.
Yeah.
It used to, listening to somebody calling in used to make me want to stick an ice pick in my ear. And now it's clear and I can hear it and it's wonderful. So
Yeah, that
thank
was
you
done.
to whoever worked that magic. I'll save the rest of my comments for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Giovanelli.
I was going to say the same thing, thank you.
You were not going to talk about an ice pick in your ear.
No, it would be in my eyeball, but because the sound system was like awesome.
And
So,
the lights are good too. We can see.
yeah. But, so, thank you for that. I just had a couple things. Thank you, Ms. Morgan, for saying all the kudos to all the other things. Friday night, or Friday is the vendor, it's on my calendar, so I'm just trying to, the vendor open house, just a reminder of that. And then also Friday night at Island Coast, they are recognizing the state champions for the baseball team there. So we've all been invited. So just FYI to that. I think that's great too. So we've got a lot of kudos to all our students and staff. Thank you. That's really all I have too.
Okay, thank you. And I'll just say that there is so much good going on, and we are almost completely back to school, which is, to me, amazing. But it's evidence of the quality of the work of our staff, and I know it's been relentless and 24/7, but I appreciate it. And of course, the efforts of our students and their families, and the support of the community. So, and then I will save my final comments for this evening also. So, Attorney Dupree Bruno.
I have none, thank you.
Okay, and Superintendent Bernier.
Thank you. I had several, but you've covered all of them. So I will defer my comments for the hurricane update that I'll provide at tonight's board meeting, and then also some additional information surrounding some of the same things like the PBIS schools, as well as our schools that received Florida recognition dollars for their grade, whether they maintained their grade or whether they improved their grade. And then I also have a small statement I would like to read into the record regarding NAEP and how our National Assessment of Educational Progress, the nation's report card, reflects on Florida and on Lee County. So, but I'll save those for those. But all of you have covered everything else.
Thank you very much. Ms. Vaughn.
If I may, something to Dr. Bernier.
Please.
I think the public would like to hear and reiterate to all of us the things that we as a school district are doing for the children that are in the North Fort Myers shelter. I know that when we had a discussion on the phone, you talked about, I think Adam was there, and that we have other groups of people serving those. So I think that if you're not planning to do it tonight.
I was planning to do it this evening.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry for then.
It's part of the hurricane update, but we do
Okay.
have students there. We are in the midst of resourcing those students, both formally and informally. They have asked for support from student enrollments, our homeless division. We also have transportation. We have figured out, student enrollment has helped us figure out some additional school sites for those young people if they choose to stay closer to their shelter. We have bus stops now set up nearby, and we're resourcing those families and getting to them and making sure that they're getting their children back into school. There are some students there, as I shared with you, as board members, that are not of school age. So, you know, we don't have a solution for them, but our Community and Student Services Division is helping those families find the resources they need for those young people as well.
Okay, great. And I'm glad that you're going to cover it tonight, because when you were talking about it, it's just another example of what this school district does and how we fill in the holes and fill in the gaps for reaching out to the community and helping with some very vital things. So thanks. I'll look forward to the full report this evening.
Okay, so we'll all look forward to this evening.
If I just could ask Ms. Vaughn just to clarify when she was saying the phone call, you're referring to your one-on-one phone call?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we will gather again at 3 o'clock for a session, and then we will be back here at 5:30 for a student performance here in the boardroom, followed by our action meeting at 6 p.m. And seeing no other business and hearing no objections, this meeting is adjourned at 2:10 PM.